Hello, fellow resistors, Meidas Canada viewers from around the world. Charlie Angus here in the beautiful woods of Northern Ontario on Thanksgiving week, and want to give a big Thanksgiving shout out to everybody. Now, I know our American friends are going to say, Thanksgiving? That's in November and it's on a Thursday. I don't know why you guys do it your way, but whatever, do it your way. We do ours on a weekend in October because you know what? If we waited till November, we'd be in the deep snow and this would be the dark months. But on this Thanksgiving weekend, everybody up here in the north, they're out in the bush celebrating being on the land. So why am I talking about Thanksgiving? Well, this is an anniversary for me, and I just wanted to share it with you. It was 25 years ago this weekend that I made the decision to become a voice in public life. I made a decision then that I was going to stand up for people who were being pushed around. I did that because on Thanksgiving weekend 25 years ago, I was standing on a blockade at the old abandoned Adams mine. And I was watching lines of police cars come up the road. And they were going to arrest my neighbors, farmers, indigenous folk, miners, blue-collar people and retirees. These people weren't radicals or dangerous. But what they were doing was standing up for the right to be heard over a project that was seriously bad and threatening to our region's environment. The project was the Adams Mine garbage dump. Now, the Adams Mine was this abandoned iron ore mine in northern Ontario near Kirkland Lake. They were these huge canyons. Imagine a 60-story skyscraper, but going down. That's the depth of those pits. They were badly fractured. Groundwater flowed from the north side of the pit through the south end. And what they were going to do is they're going to fill it up with garbage. Seemed simple to them. Seemed simple to them to dump it in northern Ontario because, we were an isolated population. We didn't have any political power. We weren't like the strong suburban voting base. They just thought they would come and dump garbage and tell us they'd give us a few jobs. And people saw how dangerous it was. Because people here understand groundwater. Miners who worked in the mines know how water flows. Indigenous people understood the need to protect water. Farmers understood groundwater. And so, from the beginning, we thought this idea was so insane that it seemed ludicrous to think that anybody would actually go ahead. And this is the first mistake that communities who face projects like this deal with. They think that the other side is going to listen to reason. They don't. If you're on the list to be a dump site or a toxic waste incinerator, it's not because you are an ideal site. It's not because it's a safe site. It's because they think you're politically expendable. They're called sacrifice zones. And they decided to make our region a sacrifice zone. And so people went to the public meetings and people did all the things. And it's all about, for the promoter and for the government, it was about ticking boxes to say that they'd heard the public. And then they pushed ahead. But they made a mistake in taking on Temiskaming, my region, because our people were tough. And they saw through this pretty quickly and decided, no, we're not going to politely go along. We're going to resist. And so resistance took many forms, and this is where I learned my lessons in resistance. I learned my lessons in resistance in Legion Hall meetings, in church basements, on Sunday afternoon rallies, where local people learned, number one, we had to come together. To beat a force with that much money and that much power behind it, we couldn't be divided amongst each other. And we had lots of divisions. Some of the French-speaking farm communities had never spoken with the neighboring English-speaking communities. The miners and environmentalists had never really spent much time talking, and nobody had bothered reaching out to the indigenous communities. And the Algonquin Nation at Temiskaming First Nation, everybody knew they'd play a big role in this, but we hadn't really built those bridges, so we had to build bridges. We had to come together and be one unit. So that was the first lesson in resistance I learned. The second lesson I learned was that we had to build our confidence as people. And that meant we would hold these rallies and gatherings and speeches. In those days, I wasn't one of the big speech guys. My job was organizer, and one of the job of organizers was to give people a task. Every week, people had to go home with a task because it was about building a sense that we were on the move, even if we didn't know what the hell we were going to do next, because there were many times. This was a very frightening fight. But we had to feel and give people hope that we were on the move, because as long as people felt that they were on the move, they felt we could win. So that was another big lesson I learned in resistance. And finally, it was understanding that the other side wasn't going to do the right thing, and that we actually were going to have to take this to the next level. And that meant civil disobedience and blockades. You know, you just don't set up a blockade and succeed. It's like a muscle. You have to build it. So what we did over the summer of 2000 was host rallies, gatherings, but it was all about moving towards active civil disobedience. Now, what we opted to do in our region was to build on our strength as a community, that we all knew each other, that we were there for each other. We weren't shouting and angry. We would have square dancers come out to participate. We'd have children's choirs. But every event over that summer was about getting people more and more confident, because they knew what we had to do. They knew this was going to go to the next level. And on the Thanksgiving weekend in October 2000, the city of Toronto was making the final decisions on the Adams Mine. Everyone thought this thing was a done deal. It was only a formality. And that's when we blocked first the Adams Mine Road. And then to escalate, we blocked the train tracks, which was a serious escalation. All that time, we were in negotiations with the police. We let the police know everything we were doing. We didn't hide anything. We weren't trying to sneak around. We made it clear. We're going to be on the road on this day, and this is what we're going to do, and we did it. So on Thanksgiving weekend, the government of Mike Harris insisted that those tracks be cleared. He wanted as many people jailed as possible to send a message that we were going to break. And we were not going to break. So what did we do? We decided to hold Thanksgiving dinner. Over 1,000 people came to our region for that Thanksgiving dinner on the railway tracks. We had a huge cookhouse set up. We had people bringing food from all over. There was more pumpkin pie than you could ever eat. I mean, who's going to arrest 1,000 people having Thanksgiving dinner? There were prayer services. There were songs being sung off the backs of trucks. It was about showing people that resistance wasn't fear, resistance was strength, and resistance was community. Those are the lessons I learned. And that Thanksgiving dinner was key in breaking this damn dangerous proposal. But it was also the moment when I decided I never want to be in that situation again. I never want to see people pushed to the margins because their democratic right to be heard wasn't heard, or that the power of big money and backroom lobbying could override basic common sense, or the fact that, you know, an independent public service whose job it is to review what is good and what is not in the public interest could be muscled by big money rather than the interest of citizens. That's when I decided that I was going to go into politics, so that the next time some scheme like this came along, that I'd be at the table. And in my 20-some years in Parliament, I never forgot the lessons I learned on Adams Mine about resistance, about standing up for people, and making sure that if we do move ahead with anything, it's done in the interests of the people and the common good. And so we're in this new resistance movement, my friends. There's a lot of lessons I learned in Adams Mine, and some of my old friends from the Adams Mine call me and we talk. And you know what they say is that you have to feel that you can win. Because once you feel you can win, they can't beat you. So that's the first step, is building that confidence. Then making people feel that they're not alone, that they're not isolated. That's the second step. And then the third step is to build this movement together to show what resistance looks like. I still haven't figured out how we're all going to fit all this together, and I know that you haven't figured it out either. But we're going to get there, my friends. We're going to get there. So here I am. 25 years I've been doing this. Never thought that would have been on my bingo card to be organizing and leading resistance, but here I am, and this is where I'm going to stay. So, happy Thanksgiving, everybody. We are kicking at the darkness, and it's going to bleed daylight. And by the way, going to have a beautiful weekend here in the bush of Northern Ontario. So thank you. Merci. Miigwech.